General Alexander Steele barely slowed as he moved through the rows of steel racks. Inside the weapons bay. At first glance, it looked like any other post-mission ritual. Rifles broken down, soldiers hunched over workbenches, the metallic whisper of oil and steel mixing with murmured voices. It was the sort of scene he'd walked through 1,000 times before, but then his eyes caught something. A glint of silver on a uniform sleeve, half hidden in the farthest corner of the armory. 3D 280 meters confirmed kill. The words were stitched into a subdued patch no bigger than his thumb, and for a moment Steele thought his eyes were deceiving him. That distance wasn't just improbable. It was the kind of statistic you heard in barroom myths, not in an official military credential. He stopped cold, boots biting against the concrete floor, as his gaze shifted from the patch to the soldier wearing it. She sat alone, tucked away behind a barricade of weapon crates like a ghost in the machine, methodically stripping down a rifle that looked like it could bring down an aircraft. It wasn't standard issue. This beast was a Barrett XM500, 50 caliber, matte black, polished like obsidian. Every movement she made was slow, precise, as if the weapon wasn't a tool, but a living thing she was keeping alive. Staff Sergeant Kaia Cruz had been stationed at Sentinel Base for nearly 9 months, and in all that time, this corner had become her world. Every bolt, every pin, every grain of carbon fouling was her enemy. She disassembled the Barrett down to its bones, cleaned each piece until it gleamed like new, and rebuilt it with the patience of a surgeon stitching flesh. The process consumed 3 full hours of her day, long after most soldiers had thrown their weapons back on the rack and headed for chow. To Steele, this level of devotion spoke louder than any dossier. She didn't just maintain the rifle, she revered it. Like a monk polishing relics, like an artist sharpening the edge of her masterpiece. And perhaps that's what this weapon was to her. A masterpiece. One capable of bending time, distance, and physics to her will. A single well-placed shot from that rifle didn't just end a life, it rewrote the battlefield. And now, as General Steele stood there, staring at that patch, that number, that soldier, one thought burned in his mind. Who the hell is Kaia Cruz, weighing close to 30 pounds and chambered for 50 caliber ammunition? The rifle was no ordinary weapon. It was an instrument of precision engineering, built for distances that mocked human perception. Firing it effectively demanded far more than a steady hand. It required mastery over elements most soldiers never considered: air density, humidity shifts, temperature gradients, and the invisible curvature of the earth itself. This wasn't just shooting. This was science married to instinct. Staff Sergeant Kaia Cruz had been assigned to Sentinel Base as part of an elite sniper detachment supporting high-risk counterinsurgency operations across volatile sectors. Her mission profile was simple on paper: overwatch and precision interdiction, eliminating hostile elements that conventional units could never reach. But in practice, it meant hours, sometimes days, perched in silence, staring through glass, waiting for that one chance where a single round would determine the outcome of an entire operation. Kaia's reputation, however, was something few could define in words. In the quiet corridors where special operations soldiers swapped rumors, her name wasn't just mentioned, it was spoken like a code, heavy with respect. Not because she commanded squads or gave fiery speeches. She did neither. Kaia was the ghost at the edge of the battlefield, the one who reached across impossible distances and delivered death with mathematical certainty. General Alexander Steele strode through the armory with Lieutenant Colonel Maximus Rhodes trailing just a step behind, their conversation a low murmur of logistics and rotation schedules. His routine inspections were rarely dramatic until his gaze drifted toward a shadowed corner. There, partially obscured by a stack of storage crates, a figure sat hunched over an enormous rifle, every movement deliberate, surgical. It was the posture of someone who treated their weapon not as government property, but as something far more intimate. What first caught Steele's eye wasn't the rifle, it was the soldier herself. Her uniform bore more than the standard array of insignia. Beyond rank stripes and unit patches, there were symbols unfamiliar even to a man who had spent decades navigating the military hierarchy, emblems of specialized schools, covert programs, training courses that didn't officially exist. And then there were the smaller pins, tiny, almost unnoticeable, yet each one heavy with meaning. They spoke of places most soldiers would never go and skills most would never master. "Carry on, Sergeant," Steele said as he approached, his tone even, the words of formality signaling that her work need not pause. Kaia glanced up just long enough to acknowledge him. Her eyes were sharp, disciplined, her nod crisp. No wasted movement, no unnecessary words. Then she lowered her head and resumed the meticulous process of cleaning. The rifle's receiver, as if the presence of a general was little more than background noise. Steele almost walked on, almost. But then his gaze snagged on a single badge stitched near the hem of her sleeve. A detail so small yet it hit him like a thunderclap. 3,280 meters confirmed. It was barely noticeable, just a stitched insignia tucked low on the sleeve, the kind of detail that most eyes would pass over without a second thought. But when General Alexander Steele read the numbers etched into that patch, his boots halted on the concrete floor. 3,280 meters confirmed. He blinked, thinking he'd misread it. 3,280 meters. That wasn't just impressive, it was absurd. Steele had worn the uniform for over a quarter of a century, had commanded units from the harshest deserts to the coldest mountain ranges, and in all that time, he had never seen anything like this. The longest confirmed sniper engagement in recorded military history was far short of what this small line of stitching claimed. "Sergeant," Steele said at last, his voice calm but edged with disbelief. "That's impossible. No one makes a shot like that." Kaia Cruz finally looked up from the weapon cradled across her lap. Her eyes met his with a quiet steadiness, unshaken by rank or tone. For a heartbeat, she didn't speak. Then, with the measured cadence of someone reciting fact, "Not opinion," she replied. "Sir, the engagement was documented and verified by Mission Command. Multiple observers confirmed it. All records are sealed under classified protocol." The words struck him harder than any outburst could have. There was no arrogance in her voice, no theatrics, just certainty. Steele studied her, searching for some sign, anything that explained what kind of soldier could do something like that. She couldn't have been more than late 20s, early 30s at most. Her posture radiated calm, not bravado. There was no aura of legend about her, except for that single, impossible claim stitched in black thread on her sleeve. He exhaled slowly. "Sergeant, I'm going to see your service record. And I want to know how the hell someone achieves a shot almost twice the maximum effective range of most sniper rifles." Kaia returned her gaze to the rifle, continuing her meticulous reassembly as if she were tightening the secrets of her life along with its bolts. "Sir, my complete record is classified beyond your clearance level, but I can provide general training and qualifications if that helps." Before Steele could respond, Lieutenant Colonel Maximus Rhodes, who had been hovering just behind with an expression that bordered on awe, stepped forward. "General, I can pull up her accessible file," he said, holding up his tablet. "Do it," Steele ordered, his voice clipped. Rhodes tapped the screen, the soft glow reflecting on his face as lines of data appeared. He began to read aloud, his tone a mix of disbelief and admiration. "Staff Sergeant Kaia Cruz, top graduate of the Advanced Sniper Course. Record-breaking scores in long-range precision and ballistic computation. Certifications in environmental analysis, high-altitude shooting, and unconventional reconnaissance tactics. Multiple deployments with specialized task forces units. I've never even seen listed in the open registry." The general's jaw tightened as the list went on. This wasn't an ordinary soldier. This wasn't even an ordinary elite. Kaia Cruz was something else entirely, and Steele intended to find out exactly what. Her service history read like a classified novel. Deployments. Attached to the 75th Ranger Regiment, support roles for Tier 1 units, and black assignments. So obscure they didn't exist in any standard operational registry. Each line painted a picture of someone who operated far beyond conventional boundaries. General Alexander Steele absorbed the data in silence, his sharp eyes flicking between the tablet and the woman seated before him. Through the entire exchange, Staff Sergeant Kaia Cruz never once broke rhythm. She continued disassembling the Barrett XM500 with unwavering focus, steel components laid out in perfect order across the mat, calm, professional, almost detached. Steele's voice cut through the quiet hum of the armory. "Sergeant Cruz, explain something to me." He stepped closer, boots echoing against the concrete. "How does a human being pull off a shot at 3,280 meters? Walk me through it." Kaia set the bolt carrier aside and looked up at him with a steady gaze that betrayed neither pride nor hesitation. When she spoke, her tone was measured, clinical, like a professor lecturing on physics, rather than recounting an act of lethal precision. "Sir, an engagement at that range involves managing dozens of variables, each capable of throwing the round off by several feet. You start with environmental factors, wind velocity and direction, across different altitude layers, air density fluctuations, barometric pressure shifts, and temperature gradients. Every subtle change alters bullet trajectory." She paused briefly, then continued, her words flowing with the certainty of someone who had lived this knowledge in the field. From the ballistic perspective, you account for gravitational bullet drop, spindrift from the rifling, and the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation. Then there's the target analysis, movement prediction, precise range calculation using multiple methods, and timing the shot during a rare window when all external conditions align. Steele said nothing, but his expression hardened with a mix of curiosity and unease. He realized he wasn't listening to a soldier reciting memorized doctrine. He was listening to someone who understood long-range precision at an almost obsessive level that few instructors, few experts could even hope to match. And yet, theory was one thing. Executing it at a record-breaking distance was something else entirely. Cruz, General Alexander Steele said, his voice cutting through the low hum of the armory. Tell me about that 3,080-meter shot. What were the circumstances? How does someone even make that happen? Kaia Cruz paused mid-motion, the rifle component resting between her fingers. Her expression tightened, the calm mask slipping just enough to reveal caution. Her eyes shifted briefly toward Lieutenant Colonel Maximus Rhodes, before returning to the general. Sir, that engagement falls under a classified operation, she said evenly. I'm permitted to discuss technical aspects in general terms, but details regarding the mission, target, or location are restricted without higher-level authorization. Rhodes lifted his tablet, scrolling through encrypted fields before speaking. General, her deployment logs confirm multiple black assignments. Full access requires clearance beyond what we have here. Steele's jaw hardened. He wasn't the kind of man to be turned back by red tape. He had just stumbled across something that shattered his understanding of sniper capabilities, and he intended to peel back the layers one way or another. Then let's talk technical, he said, taking a slow step closer. Explain to me how American shooters are pulling off engagements that stretch beyond 3 kilometers. Enlighten me. Kaia studied him for a heartbeat, weighing protocol against his directive. When she spoke again, her tone was precise, stripped of emotion, the cadence of a soldier delivering facts. Sir, the engagement occurred in mountainous terrain that provided significant elevation advantage. That elevation was critical for reducing bullet drop at extreme distances. The target was stationary for an extended duration, which allowed full environmental assessment and ballistic computation. Conditions were ideal, minimal crosswind, stable air density, clear visibility. Steele narrowed his eyes. And at that range? How do you even see the target? That's more than 2 miles. Advanced optics, General, Kaia replied. The Barrett XM500 was configured with high magnification glass, paired with integrated laser rangefinders and a ballistic computer. Those systems feed real-time corrections for spindrift, Coriolis effect, and elevation adjustments. It extends engagement capability beyond what the naked eye alone could manage. Steele absorbed the explanation in silence, realizing this wasn't just about hardware. Yes, technology had leapt forward. But what she was describing wasn't a push-button solution. It demanded an operator who could translate chaos into numbers and turn those numbers into a single perfect shot. How long did it take to set that up? He asked finally. Kaia rested her hands on the weapon, her voice steady. 4 hours, sir. Environmental logging, wind profiling at multiple layers, ballistic computation, and confirmation checks. The trigger squeeze was seconds. But the shot was the result of meticulous preparation. The general said nothing. But in that moment, he understood something fundamental. This wasn't luck, and it wasn't just technology. This was skill on a level that bordered on art. 4 hours, General Alexander Steele repeated slowly, almost as if tasting the words. You held position that long? For a single shot? Yes, sir, Kaia Cruz answered without hesitation. At extreme distances, precision isn't just about pulling the trigger. It's about patience, timing, every variable has to align. Rushing it would have dropped the probability of success to almost zero. Lieutenant Colonel Maximus Rhodes had been quietly scribbling in his notebook throughout the exchange, but now he stopped, lifting his head. There was something in his eyes, part disbelief, part awe. General, Rhodes said, his voice low but steady. What she's describing? This goes far beyond anything I've ever seen in conventional sniper doctrine. Steele's expression hardened as the realization settled. He wasn't just uncovering a detail, he was staring into a corner of warfare that lived behind, doors he'd never even known existed. But his curiosity was far from satisfied. Cruz, Steele said, stepping closer, his voice dropping into a tone that carried weight. I want to see it. A demonstration. Show me what this level of precision looks like when it's applied in the real world. Kaia hesitated, her jaw tightening slightly. A live fire demonstration wasn't something you just walked into. It wasn't as simple as setting a target downrange. It required layers of approval, safety measures, and infrastructure most installations didn't keep on standby. Sir, she began carefully, executing a demonstration at this range requires proper facilities, range clearance, safety coordination, and chain of command authorization. The distances involved aren't standard. They come with serious logistical requirements. Steele didn't blink. I'll take care of the authorization. You take care of the shot. His voice had the finality of an order etched in stone. He turned sharply toward Rhodes. Maximus, make it happen. Whatever she needs, target systems. Range control, safety protocols, you get it. No excuses. Rhodes hesitated for just a fraction before replying. Sir, the longest range we have access to on this base is 1,200 meters. That's barely half of what she just described. The general didn't flinch. Then push it to its limit. And if it's not enough, we'll find somewhere that is. I want every man in this chain to understand what a world-class shooter can do when the conditions align. And I want to see it with my own eyes. Kaia said nothing, but in her silence was an acceptance. A calm acknowledgement of the storm her skill was about to unleash. If she needs 3,200 meters for a proper live fire, General Alexander Steele said, his voice calm but edged with authority, then we'll secure the space, off base if we have to. Coordinate with any installation necessary. Lieutenant Colonel Maximus Rhodes gave a sharp nod, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Understood, sir. I'll make the calls. Across the room, Staff Sergeant Kaia Cruz remained silent, though her eyes betrayed the weight of what was unfolding. A demonstration like this wasn't a casual request. It meant paperwork, safety audits, coordination with range control, and responsibility that fell squarely on her if anything went wrong. Finally, she spoke. General, if you're set on observing a precision engagement, I'd recommend we start smaller, an intermediate distance, to establish the fundamentals first. Jumping straight to max range brings unnecessary risks for a first evaluation. Steele fixed her with an unwavering look. What's your recommendation? Sir, 1,200 meters, Kaia replied steadily. That's well within the capabilities of this installation while still illustrating precision beyond conventional norms. The general considered that for a moment, then gave a single curt nod. Fine, 1,200 it is. Make it happen. 2 days later, the extended range facility at Camp Liberty had been cleared and secured. The atmosphere was electric with curiosity as Steele arrived flanked by senior staff officers. They had all heard rumors of shooters capable of feats that defied doctrine, but today, they would see it with their own eyes. Kaia had been there since dawn, working in absolute focus. Before her lay the tools of a professional who operated on the edge of possibility. A Barrett MWT-1, resting on a reinforced platform. High-end optical systems with thermal overlays, a compact ballistic computer, and environmental monitoring devices spread in a precise arc around her position. Every detail mattered, and every detail took time. Nearly 2 hours passed before the line was ready. General, Rhodes reported as Steele approached. The target is locked at 1,200 meters. Conditions are ideal. Minimal crosswind, stable temperature. Steele lifted his binoculars, scanning the distant steel silhouette glinting under the midday sun. Cruz, he called out, his tone clipped. You ready to show me what world-class looks like? Kaia didn't answer immediately. She lay prone, eyes locked on her optics as she moved through a series of checks. Angles, pressure, drift estimates. Only when satisfied did she glance up briefly. Yes, sir. Steele lowered the binoculars. Walk me through what you're doing. Kaia's voice was calm, almost clinical as she resumed her process. First, I'm mapping wind across the entire trajectory. Not just here, every point between us and the target. I'm also factoring temperature gradients and air density shifts. Each variable changes how the round behaves in flight. She tapped the compact digital unit beside her, where scrolling data reflected her inputs. These calculations feed into my firing solution. No guessing, no assumptions, only math and physics. Steele listened, silent but intent, realizing this was far beyond the marksmanship he thought he understood. This wasn't shooting. This was science delivered through steel and glass. The final preparations consumed several long minutes, each step underscoring just how much precision and discipline this level of marksmanship demanded. General, Kaia Cruz finally said, her voice even. Ballistic solution confirmed. All variables accounted for. I'm set to engage. Sliding fully into position, Kaia eased behind her Barrett, aligning her frame with the rifle's axis as she dialed. In the last adjustments on her optic, every movement was deliberate, controlled. General Alexander Steele raised his binoculars, his expression unreadable as he observed her sequence. Kaia's breathing slowed to a near imperceptible rhythm, a silent cadence designed to synchronize body and weapon into a single system of control. The moment broke with an ear-splitting crack. The Barrett's detonation was as much a physical event as an auditory one. The shockwave rattling through the observation area, the massive .50 caliber slug tore downrange, leaving behind a lingering reverberation. Even with advanced recoil mitigation, the force demanded respect from anyone who witnessed it. "Impact confirmed, center mass," called the range safety officer. His eye pressed to the spotting scope. Steele pivoted back to his lenses, locking onto the distant target. His jaw tightened as he absorbed the truth. The round had landed dead on, its placement a testament to skill that bordered on the unreal. 1,200 meters, clean, precise, absolute. Impressive didn't begin to cover it. But Steele's mind was already moving ahead. "Cruz," he said slowly, "you're telling me you can do that at triple this distance?" Kaia adjusted her prone position slightly but kept her tone calm, matter-of-fact. "Yes, sir. At extended ranges, environmental effects scale exponentially. Wind drift, pressure gradients, microclimate shifts, flight time more than doubles. Every factor magnifies. But the process? It's still governed by math and discipline." Steele lowered the binoculars, his thoughts sharpening like a... The operation's success wasn't a product of luck. It came from the razor-thin edge where cutting-edge systems met relentless human discipline. Even now, Staff Sergeant Kaia Cruz operates in specialized assignments that exploit those rare qualities, taking on missions that redefine the limits of precision and endurance. Most of her record will never see daylight, locked behind layers of security clearances, but its influence radiates through countless strategic victories few will ever hear about. What General Alexander Steele discovered was a truth few commanders articulate out loud. The most decisive assets in warfare often emerge from places no one expects. They are the soldiers who master their craft in silence, polishing steel and optics under dim armory lights while the world looks the other way. Operators who train for moments that history books will never record. Have you ever met someone who seemed ordinary until you realized their capability could tilt the balance of an entire mission? Kaia Cruz embodies that reality. Proof that the quietest professionals often deliver the loudest outcomes when the stakes climb to impossible heights. The general, who once gave only a passing glance to a soldier maintaining her weapon, came to realize that certain insignias are more than decoration. They are silent chapters of triumph that stretch the limits of what human skill, relentless training, and advanced systems can achieve when perfectly aligned. If you believe true mastery often hides in the shadows, share this story. Because at this very moment, somewhere unseen, someone is honing skills that could determine the outcome of a mission. When every other option fails, Kaia Cruz didn't simply take a difficult shot. She redefined what the term impossible means in the theater of war. Her abilities live on the outermost edge of human capability, waiting for the instant when precision becomes the deciding factor between success and catastrophe. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for more untold accounts of extraordinary soldiers who changed the course of history in silence.